Hey there. You probably have no idea who the hell I am, and that's okay. My name's Narrator, and I used to be best friends with CallMeCarson. I actually started YouTube around the same time as him, along with my other friend Raccoon Eggs. We all blew up together around the same time. But you're probably thinking to yourself, wait a minute, I know who Carson is, and I know who Raccoon Eggs is, but I have no idea who you are. And you're right. And that was intentional, but not by me. The video you're about to watch is from a stream I did a few days ago, right after the Drama Alert video came out, where I told a story that I've been waiting to tell the world for almost 3 years. There are many reasons I haven't been able to speak out before January 5th, 2021. But none of that matters right now. What matters is that you hear the truth about CallMeCarson, what he's done to me in my life, and how he's manipulated most of the people that I used to call friends into hating me over things that I never did. Because Carson painted a picture of me behind the scenes to everyone that I called a friend that just wasn't true. And there was nothing I could do about it. Absolutely nothing. Until right now. There are timestamps in the video if you want to skip around, but I'd implore you to listen to the whole video. And you know, it's kind of funny. In a way, Carson helped build this channel, and now he's helped end it. So, if you will, enjoy most likely my last video on this channel. And thank you for listening. I'm not going to address the allegations. I'm going to say that from what I've been told by multiple people who I would trust very deeply, that I believe them 100%. I have no reason. People who have no reason to lie to me have told me this. So that's what I'll say there. And I don't want to say much more about it because, again, I wasn't in Lunch Club. I wasn't directly involved. But these guys are my friends. And it sounds like something Carson... Well, no, it doesn't. That's the problem. That's the fucking problem. Is it doesn't sound like something he would do. And it's really fucking hard. But the reason that I believe them, and I'll skip the whole SCP shit for the most part, the reason why I have no reason not to believe them and why I think that they are 100% telling the truth and why I'm 99.99999% sure that these aren't lies is because they've had to deal with Carson in a very similar way that I have. And so, for anybody who is a fan of the Solitariey Confinement podcast and you wanted to know why it ended, I'll go over it now. I went at the beginning of the stream, I went on the ups. Now I will go on the downs. Please don't donate. Please don't. I'm not a content creator. Don't donate to me. Don't sub to me. Nothing. Nothing. And also, 9 Junior 9000, I'm going to go over why I was never in SCP Live. Anyways, I'm not looking at chat anymore. Chat's dead. No, now I'm telling my story. I'm ignoring you all. Don't try to get my attention. Don't donate. Nothing. So, me and Raccoon Eggs were Carson's basically first internet friend content creators. Now, there was Matt, Notorious, but other than that, I don't really know what it was. So we started SCP. It was going great. We had guests. We had Fitz. We had Swagger. A lot of people. We were the Misfits before the Misfits. And it was fun working with Carson at first because the worst part about it all is that he's a genuinely funny guy, and I've genuinely had great times hanging out with him in person. But working with him is one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do in my life. Doing that podcast with him was one of the hardest fucking things that I've ever had to do in my fucking life. And it's because of episodes like episode 24 of SCP or other episodes whenever I'd lash out Because the best way to describe Carson is that he doesn't turn off. A lot of people, especially when he was blowing up, they're like, oh, this is funny. Ha, nice act. Or when he'd stream, ha. But he's always like that. Always. At least when he's talking to you. Whenever you need to talk seriously with him, whenever there's things you need to discuss, whenever, and this is my experiences, whenever you would have a problem with him, or there was something that you needed to talk about, that you just, or if you just wanted a fucking friend to talk to and genuinely listen to you, if you were going through something hard or anything, he would never take it seriously. He would always keep pushing, constantly. And there's a few examples I have, but in the grand scheme of things of what we just watched, it's nothing. But it's more so that I want anybody else, if you've worked with Carson, know that you're not alone. Because I was until a couple months ago, at least in my head. So there was the time where Carson had hijacked the Twitter account multiple times. Just without telling us. And we'd ask him, hey, give it back. Hey, what are you doing? This isn't funny. Shit like that. And he'd laugh at us. Or during serious situations. Like on SCP, I had many mental breakdowns that a lot of people thought were scripted, and they weren't. And they never were. And while it may have been funny as fuck, towards the end of it, once you heard those uncomfortable conversations, there was a reason they were uncomfortable. But I could never really say anything about it because I was the smallest fry in the group. So, whenever I'd air my grievances or try to talk to anybody about it, Carson, Ezra, anybody, they would all just think it's part of the joke. They'd think it's part of the bit. So for a year and a half, that was my life. Was that just nobody takes anything seriously because of working with Carson and because of his success and the new audiences that he would bring in. And it was really hard because him and Raccoon were really my only friends. And I don't blame Rack for how he acted because we were dumb kids. And I don't even think he knew that it wasn't necessarily a bit. But once I stressed it, he stopped. He would empathize with me. Carson wouldn't. Carson would just keep going. And so I put it in the wrong order on my list. But now is time to address the VidCon and where it really kind of all fell through and why SCP isn't anymore and why this I'm speaking out at all and why it relates to Lunch Club or Goop or any fucking anything else like that. So for those of you who don't know, which is literally everybody, I have a couple, not screws loose, but I have BPD and Asperger's. And it's been I'm more adjusted now, but in 2017, 2016, 2018, I was pretty good, but not the best. And so I had medication that I had to take. Lamictal and Concerta. The only reason I'm telling you this is because in 2018, in June, one of the last weeks of June, for SCP, since Carson was getting huge and Rack was already huge, we decided, hey, it'd be cool if we went to VidCon. And I tried to be responsible about it and bring my meds and take them. And I'm going to seem like an asshole here because I was. And there are people I'm going to apologize to very publicly that I've wanted to, but I couldn't for the longest time because I didn't have a voice to. Or because if I did, I'd be called a liar. So during the VidCon trip, I'll go over the whole VidCon trip and why it was bad. VidCon 2018. So we get an Airbnb And the Airbnb was a scam. I was flying in from Detroit to LA. And I got the first flight. Both Carson and Rack and I believe Altrive. Josh was already there. And I think, well, no, Noah joined a bit later. So I was the first one there, and I found out that it was a scam, and that we didn't have an Airbnb, and that I had just flown in to LA for the first time ever flying anywhere, really, going on a vacation so far away from home, and I didn't have any kind of a plan. I didn't know what the fuck to do. And so I text Carson, and I'm like, hey, the Airbnb's fake. Shit like that. Like, what the fuck are we going to do? And I'm not on my meds at this point, and this is my fault. It doesn't excuse my behaviors during VidCon, but it at least lets you know why I did some of them. I don't excuse any of the behavior, and I will apologize to everybody individually over this. But, so I was panicking because I had 4 hours where I was alone and there was nothing I could really do other than take my suitcase and go to VidCon again. And I was having a manic episode. And if you don't know, borderline personality disorder, or BPD, is very similar to bipolar disorder, except you have manic episodes constantly, not long ones, frequent ones daily. So I was having a bit of a manic episode. And so Carson and Rack and Altrive were all in the plane, so they couldn't respond. But eventually they got my messages, and they're like, what are you talking about? And so I was at VidCon at that point, calming down a bit, meeting people that I knew. And like, or had recognized, or people I was friends with. So I was a bit calmer, but I was like, hey, yeah, we don't have a place to stay. And they got there and they took some photos. And if I make this a video, I'll show them, but it's kind of funny in retrospect.
This is a really good gag. Zooming into somebody's face, this right here, this is the best gag. This is my favorite gag. Hey, look a little bit more alive for the camera, please. You don't look very alive right now, alright? Can you do me a favor and just perk up, please, for this one shot? You're really not cooperating right now, and we're gonna have to recast. This is not working.
Because they made the most out of it. But so we were kind of fucked. So we just went around VidCon. All of us had our suitcases, and then we found a motel for the night. But this was like my first big trip. This was most of our first big trips. And we had to stay in a shitty motel next to a Denny's. And needless to say, a manic me wasn't really taking it very well once we left VidCon from the safe area of, hey, we're here, it's whatever. So the first day ends. It goes okay other than the Airbnb. Then the second day begins, and we wake up in the hotel room. We have 2 hotel rooms. One for, I'm pretty sure Noah was there with us. I'm pretty sure. So that we have one for Carson, Raccoon Eggs, and I, and then a second one for Altrive and Noah. I could be wrong about Noah, but I'm pretty sure he was with us. Because I know he was with us for a certain part of it, because we had edibles later, and it was a magical experience, and we were basically friends for life because of this. So we wake up, and I'm starting to like panic a bit again, because we can't really afford to stay in, well, at least I couldn't. I didn't know about their financial situations. I don't know about their financial situation. I'm not that kind of guy, but we were all small, poor. So I was panicking because I can't afford a new flight home. I'm already here. Like, what the fuck's going on? So I was having a manic episode basically right when I woke up. And this goes back to some of the, if you're an SCP listener and you liked the Solitary Confinement podcast, any of those times that I was having a mental breakdown, like in the podcast, the thing with it there is that I was in a safe space. I was in my room. It was fine. I could leave. I could walk away, whatever. We could make a joke about it. It's fine. But when you're in that situation, and they had known, because we had done the podcast for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and we were very good friends. So they knew full well the shit that I was going through, because I was going through a lot of shit. and I hadn't been officially diagnosed with BPD yet. I had just had MDD. So the doctors didn't even really know why I was going through these manic episodes. But they had known about this kind of shit. And when I say Carson doesn't turn off, he doesn't. And when you're having a manic episode and you're just being harassed constantly, think about it like this. This is the best way I can sum it up for you guys. Think about when like your dad comes into your room and he's like reminding you, hey, do this and this and this. And you're like, okay, I got it. And then he gets mad at you. So he keeps like doing it and he keeps reminding you and it makes you mad because it's like, I get it. And he gets annoying. And then eventually like you might just start yelling and shit like that. But like that annoyance right there, multiply that by 1,000. And that's the situation that I was in. Because I was stressing out and Carson was just making fun of me. And he was poking me and prodding me. And just like instigating me in a manic state just to go more and more. And just to get further onto the edge. And Ezra, I've already forgiven him for this, but Ezra kind of has it's in his character to kind of at least first joke, because Raccoon Eggs is one of the funniest people that I know. And so at first he didn't know that I was joking, because sometimes I do play it off as a bit, but there are ways that you can know when I'm legitimately having an episode. And once he picked it up, he stopped. Carson didn't. He kept going. And then Ultrive comes into the room. And Ultrive, I can't remember exactly what happened because I kind of went into tunnel vision and I was extremely mad. But Ultrive doesn't really help this situation. Now, it could just be because Carson had been poking and prodding me that I was in an irrational state of mind that nothing anybody said could have calmed me down. And this is where I fucked up majorly, and this is, and I'll get back to this later as to why I thought I was alone in my experience with Carson. But Ultrive had gotten me to the point where I had tried to get physical. And thankfully, I wasn't able to do anything. I was held back. But in that hotel room, and I'll never forget trying to fucking punch Ultrive to shut him up. And then I ended up punching the wall. It's fine. It was a Motel 6 or like a shitty, one of those shitty like Econo lodges. And I apologized to him. I've apologized to him since, and I will apologize very publicly now. Ultrive, Dashel, I'm sorry for that. And the emotional stress that I put you in. You didn't deserve to be in that situation. It wasn't your fault. And I'm sorry. And I think about it a lot. And I think about that trip a lot. And I'm happy. I'd like to think that I'm a better person now. I'd like to think that I've evolved. And honestly, my life has become more well-adjusted. I'm on my medication. I'm good. But I was a bad person then. And that was my fault. And I'm genuinely sorry for trying to punch you and the stress that I put you under on that trip. But right after that, I needed to go outside. I needed to calm down. Because I had been pushed to a point in a manic state. Again, I'm not excusing my behavior. I'm explaining why it happened. It's 100% my fault with how I escalated. But in that manic state, I needed to go outside to calm down. And I think I threw a shoe at him too. I can't remember. Or it hit the door. So then after that, once I'm outside, everybody except for Ezra just like goes into the other hotel room and they lock the door. And I think they had my camera in there. I don't know. I don't know for sure. I just remember the door being locked, pissing me the hell off. And it wasn't helping. Again, I'm not proud of that moment. And I wish I could say that that was the first time that Carson had ever pushed me to that point. To the point where I get physical with people who I viewed as my friends. but it wasn't, and it wasn't the only time that trip that shit had happened. So later that day, after we get that done, we passed that bridge. It was tense, but once we got back to VidCon, hey, baby, we're having a great time. We're meeting up with fans. Ezra hadn't done a face reveal yet, so he was wearing a rack mask. It was cool. I was meeting up with some of my YouTuber friends. We kind of split during that. We'd all gone our own ways. That's where I think me and Noah and Rack had hung out that day, and we had met up with Josh, and it was pretty good from there. And then after we met up with everybody, it was fine. The situation had tensed, or it had calmed down a bit. We decided, hey, I've never had In-N-Out before. Carson had never had In-N-Out before. I don't know if Rack did or not. He's a fucking stoner in Colorado. Of course he probably has. And I don't think Noah had either. Or wait, no. I don't think Noah was there for that part. So we all go to In-N-Out, and we're like constantly dealing with Airbnb the entire trip. And if you look back at during somebody do this, I implore you, look up on Twitter from Raccoon Eggs, CallMeCarson YT, or the narrator here for June or July, like the 20th or something. You'll see rants about Airbnb because their customer source shit. Hey, this is the only comedic bit that I'm going to do out of this. Don't fucking use Airbnb. It's awful. Their customer support treats you like shit. They run you around in your time of need. Fuck Airbnb. Thank you. But anyways, so we're dealing with that Airbnb. We end up going to a significantly nicer hotel. And we calm down a bit there. And we just kind of chill. Hey, we're not at the Airbnb, but we're at a nice hotel, or like condo hotel thing. It's cool. We're cool. Water under the bridge. I think Dashiell, Cooper, and Noah had all had their own hotel room, and I had me, Carson, and Raccoon Eggs had our own. And I slept on the couch because ew, gay. Fuck. I'm trying to like say my piece here about that. But so later in that day, I have another manic episode, just kind of stressing. Just stressing in general. I don't know exactly what it was, but Carson starts laughing at me, and he's like, what's wrong? You gonna cry? You look mad. And general shit like that. I don't remember the exact words because I've tried to actively suppress this. But that's he would say general like things you don't tell to people to calm down. But again, if you've ever had a manic episode, you know not to do that. Tenfold. And the only other incident that we really had that trip, I don't want to go into Disneyland, because Disneyland was a general all-around bad time, but I think it was more so, and it was on me, but it was more so because I had never been to Disneyland, and I was like, when you have ADHD, it's like when you have to take Concerta, oh boy, Zoom, let's do it, all day energy. But Disneyland was okay. Had its ups, had its downs, whatever. So then, and this is a really great story, and I just want to say this because, and this is one of the problems with Carson, and just like the stress, and maybe it's just BPD in general, but he doesn't turn off, but he can also, he's one of the most insufferable people I've ever really had to experience with, but he can also be great. You can also have fantastic times with him. And I will never forget, and I will always cherish my time with Carson, Raccoon, Noah, Altrive, Cooper, both Noah and Cooper Lunch Club, but Cooper and I think I already said All Tribe. When we had experienced for the first time, well, some of us, the non-Cali native people, had experienced for the first time that you can get weed delivered to you. And it was a magical experience. And Noah, I want to say very publicly, I've told you this privately, you changed my life that day when you introduced me to a YouTube poop called Deliver Us, and we both dropped on edibles at the exact same time. That shit was magical. I passed out. If you watch Raccoon Eggs' VidCon vlog, you can see me passed out on the bed. And for those of you, if you're more of a visual kind of person, you need references, watch Raccoon Eggs' VidCon 2020 or 2018 video. So that was VidCon. It was a manic mess. I treated some of my friends like absolute shit, and I did things that I felt bad for a very long time. And some of them I have the ability to apologize to and some of them I don't. And if you never accept my apology, I understand completely. And I want to apologize to everybody on that trip. Noah, Cooper, Rack, All Tribe, Josh, there was somebody else there. I can't remember. It's really hard to think right now, but if you were there, you know, and I apologize and I'm sorry. Now, let's get to the point that I've really been meaning to lead to, and to why this stream and this video isn't really for a lot of you, but it's more so there's some people out there who probably feel alone about their experience with Carson. And I just want to say that you're not. And for about 2.5 years, I had felt like I had been completely alone until I found shit out with Lunch Club, what we basically just listened to. But so let's now go on to the end of the podcast. I was going to college at the time. I still am. But I didn't realize like how much VidCon kind of ruined things. There was things behind the scenes. Carson apparently had wanted to end the podcast for a while, but he didn't tell me, and neither did Rack. But Rack's really bad at communicating, so whatever. So one day out of the blue, I call Carson and I'm like, "Hey, when are we doing the next podcast?" And this was a month after VidCon, and he's like, "Oh, we're ending it." Yeah, we're just gonna end it. Well, at first, he didn't want to end it. He wanted to kick me off of the podcast when it was my fucking podcast in the first place. I created the channel. I created everything. And this is petty shit, but at the same time it's not. It's relevant to other things. But he had just decided it was his now. Then you see this meme? I created this meme. Oh, that's a nice meme. I created this meme. That's essentially what he did IRL. And he backed up that he wanted to kick me off, then it's just ending it by hijacking the YouTube account, the Twitter account, and the Instagram account, and the PayPal account, and virtually everything that he could take control of. And he kicked me from the Discord, so he was then the owner of the Discord. And he had taken complete fucking control of everything. And what we didn't know at the time was this was his big move for something that I've been asked about every single day or every other day for the past 3 fucking years. And Raccoon and Carson have been asked. So we talk about how we're going to end it. How are we going to let people know, hey, the podcast is ending? Because I had come to terms with, okay, whatever, it's ending. It's probably for the best. Me and Carson don't get along at all. He causes me so much stress to the point where I was in and out of therapy for a good stretch there. And so we had all decided, okay, we'll do something together. We'll give it a week. We'll think about it. We'll think, do we want to make our own videos and then kind of stitch it together? Or do we want to make it a group video and be like, hey, mommy and daddy, we love you very much, but we just don't love each other anymore? Like, because was still thinking, okay, joking or whatever. But it goes back to how Carson hijacked everything, because Raccoon Eggs and I were in a call one night just talking about, like, okay, we got to probably figure this out, whatever. And then magically, we get an alert on our phones. And we both look at them, and we see, the Solitariey Confinement podcast had just uploaded a video titled SCP Is Dead. No, we didn't know anything about this. We had known nothing at all. So quickly, we watched the video. It was up for 10 minutes, if that. About 1,000 people had watched it. And essentially, what the video was, and this... I'm mad I didn't say anything earlier about this. And if this is why I've had some spicy takes recently about certain people. But essentially, what the video is, he hijacked the channel to say, hey, it's over. And then he had taken, he had gotten that fucking whiteboard. If any of you have seen his Twitch game show shit, he had gotten that whiteboard from that. That's where that whiteboard came from. Some secret CallMeCarson lore. Ooh, valuable information. He had gotten that whiteboard, and he had very shittily drawn on it, step by step, like in a Draw My Life, but not like a close-up. He was holding it, and he transitioned between the scenes. That the podcast was over was because of me, because I was a shit human being, and that he's leaving. He wants to end the podcast, but it's entirely because of me. And he talks about VidCon in a way where it didn't happen. And you have to realize this was at the time, right, like a month or two after invading Discord servers had blown up. He knew his play 100%. He was talking to people behind the scenes about this, but not Ezra or I. He was planning how he was going to do this. And I will never forget. He says, and I have in my possession the raw video. But I'm waiting until I get a different file of it. But he says, and I quote, "Narrator is a horrible human being, but go subscribe to him," to his very rapidly growing audience. Because at the time he had between 250K to 500,000. And if you were on the internet from 2018, you know how quickly he fucking grew. He said, "I hate Narrator as a person. I think he's a horrible human being, but go subscribe to him. Don't send any hate his way. Also, I think he's a shit person." And it wasn't just him being stupid or like naive, like, oh, I don't know how people work. He had deliberately, and this is where I'm going to throw some people under the bus. I'm going to throw some people under the bus, and I'm going to throw Carson under the bus. And some people who I even just apologize to. Because I've been holding on to some screenshots. Let me see if I can find them. For quite a while. And I'm not talking about the allegations or anything like that, because that's not my story to tell. But I'm pretty sure Carson trying to use his rapidly growing meme audience to ruin my life. I think that is my story. I think that is my story to tell. Let me look over these screenshots real quick. I don't know exactly who provided some of them to me, because I don't know if they were in group chats. But I want you to realize that at that time, his inner circle, I'm only gonna name two of them because I can't say 100% sure. Well, no, fuck it. I'll say it. I don't know who all was involved, if all of them were involved, but I know at the very least. So his inner circle was Ultrive, Josh, and I believe Mason. Okay, yeah, it was Josh. I can't say for certain. I can't say for certain if Mason was involved at all. But let me leave you over these. Oh, another thing I completely forgot. While I'm looking over these screenshots, I can say this like because it was fucking wild. So another thing, after Carson takes over the podcast, like once he uploads that, he doesn't know that I, being the account creator, being the person who made the Solitary Confinement podcast channel, I still have direct access to it. Because if you remember, if you watched Drama Alert during 2018, there were some scandals about how like people had gotten their account hijacked or whatever, but there's a secret way to get around it. Like by going into your YouTube creator dashboard and then accessing a channel because you have certain rights. And he didn't know that that was the only thing that I still had access to. So I deleted that video within 10 minutes. But he also had said in that video that he was keeping the videos up, but he was turning it into a new podcast called Unzipped, where he had originally planned on having it with Raccoon and All Tribe, but he ended up turning it into into a completely different thing with All Tribe, River, which Max, I love Max, and a couple other people. I think Josh was on it too. I don't know. If you remember Unzipped, that's what he wanted to do with SCP without discussing it with us. So that's why it says archive. That's why if you go to the Solitary Confinement channel, it says archive, because it didn't occur to him at all that, hey, maybe, this thing that we built, what makes you think that you can just do that? That didn't occur in his mind at all. And now, speaking of what I was just talking about, let me double check that this is the same one. If you think that I don't have receipts for this exact thing, here you go. There you go. He just wanted to take the channel. And if you don't believe that fucking he would just, if you don't think that he sabotaged me, here's a screenshot that he took. Or no, I don't know if he took it. I got it. I think I got it from Josh. I didn't get it from Josh because I wasn't cool with Josh, but I got it for somebody. Whoever I got it to, thank you. Thank you. And these are things that I've been holding off onto on a folder on my computer. For the longest, this folder, originally I thought it lost it because the hard drive got corrupted a while ago. But thankfully, only the boot drive was taken. I'll put up another one. So when I said that he had planned this, and he had planned to take down or post this video trying to ruin my fucking life, he had gone through everybody in his inner circle at the time, and they all told him, don't fucking do this. This is an awful idea. And he kind of just fucking ignored them and did it anyways. And It's wild. Here's him talking to All Tribe about how he wants to be on speaking terms with me, or he doesn't want to be on speaking terms, just good terms. And so the bottom part where he says, see, here's the thing. If I'm not honest, I'm going to feel like I'm lying. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm not going into specifics. That's him talking about saying very publicly, hey, Narrator's a horrible fucking person, but go subscribe. But he's awful. Go subscribe. I hate him with all my guts. But hey, my growing audience of hundreds of thousands of people a month at that point, because he hadn't gotten to 1 million yet, go subscribe to him. Go subscribe. Go subscribe to this person that I fucking hate. And I like it. Oh, let me look through these real quick, because there's some DMs between us, but even now, I feel like I've kind of proven myself a bit that I don't need to show you that I wanted him to make a tweet addressing it, but I didn't like want to make a big thing about it, because I don't know who had told me, but I was told by quite a few close friends, be the bigger person about this. And so I did. And up until a little bit ago, I didn't know the extent that this behavior and just being just an awful fucking person, I didn't know how long that had been running. I thought it was an isolated case. I thought him like actively planning and sabotaging me, sabotaging the podcast, trying to... Oh, actually, wait, before I even say that, here you go. Here, this is what he said, quote. And then this is All Tribe telling him that's an awful idea. Also, by the way, I'd like some advice with the announcement video before I record it, because I want to give myself honest feelings on the situation and straight up say, I personally think Narrator's a terrible person, but my opinions toward him shouldn't affect how you view him. Continue to support him in his endeavors. So this is why the podcast ended, if you've been wondering. If anybody here has been wondering, why did the Solitariey Confinement podcast end? This is why it fucking ended. And I've kept my mouth shut about this so Carson doesn't look bad for a very fucking long time. Because I thought it's an isolated incident. Yeah, me and Carson don't get along. Well, that's fine. You know what? Whatever. We have beef. I did try to kind of fucking punch All Tribe. I get it. Whatever. And we never got along. And I'm not going to get into specifics because it's not really my place to speak. And I'm not going to talk about the minor allegations or any of that. Not my place to speak either, because me and Carson had separated by then. But to address 9 Junior 9000 of why I wasn't in SMP Live, this had all happened right before SMP Live started. I missed SMP Live by a month. But what really fucking hurts me is that in the Drama Alert episode that we listened to, I don't know what I can say. I actually don't know how much I can say. But let's just say Lunch Club, as far as I've been told by a few people, ended similarly. And then hearing about, well, similarly in the sense that Carson just kind of did things. The real reason why I'm making this stream is because when I was told about the parallels between what I went through with Carson and what other people had gone through with Carson, it made me feel like, holy fucking shit. Thank God I wasn't alone. I wasn't happy that I wasn't alone, but the amount of weight that was lifted off when I figured out that it wasn't just me and that other people had gone through this as well. And that I had somebody I could talk to and I could relate to about the fucking problem. That made life a bit easier. And it's hard because with these additional allegations going around, and JC, I'm going to do exactly what you said, and I'm going to vent very publicly. And this is going to sound probably pretty selfish, but I don't care. Because this is something that I've been like wanting to kind of really get out there for a bit. But knowing what we know now, because not everything's out there, whatever, it's not, they're things that still muddied. But knowing how many people that he's fucking hurt and potentially how many young people he's fucking hurt, and knowing that in the back of my mind, and I've been told it's not my fault, I shouldn't feel bad, but I'm still going to. Knowing the fact that I'm the guy who knows everybody, but nobody knows. And because I know so many people, and I introduced him to a few very critical people in his life that brought him to where he is, part of me feels like if I just didn't introduce him to a very particular person, and you know who you are if you're watching this, which you might be, not all of this could have been avoided. So that's why I'm streaming this, because I needed to get my piece out. Because in the back of my mind, once all this comes out, for the rest of my life, I'm going to think about how much damage probably could have been fucking avoided. Like, eventually, he probably would have blown up, but it would have taken longer. Potentially, it could have just fizzled out. Maybe it would have been out of the algorithm at that time. I don't know. Reddit videos were popular. It was lazy content. But if you just didn't have an editor, I don't know. That's what's been keeping me up for the past 6 months at night, having that weight on my back. And the fact that the reason myself, I didn't say any of this, or I didn't address the allegations or anything, is because WH Omega Law. So now that it's all out there, after 3 years, I've made my peace. I've said what I need to say. At least about that. I've been able to get it off my chest. I might upload the fucking video on my channel, a burner channel. You'll see it on Twitter. Don't follow me. Don't subscribe to me. None of that shit. I'm not a content creator anymore. I may occasionally stream. I may tweet. But my fucking experience with Carson isn't the only factor, because I was unmotivated. But god damn, it hit the nail on the head. I'm fucking hating YouTube. And it just makes me wonder, how many more people are like Carson, but we just don't know. Because let me tell you something. The YouTube scene is not all sunshine and rainbows. There's a lot of bad people out there. There's a lot of bad people. But hey, I've made my peace. I've made my peace. And now that everybody's here, I'm going to look at chat again, whatever. I want to stress so fucking much. Now that you've listened to me say that, I want to stress that the people, because I saw some sentiment before I stopped looking at chat, the people that you see who say that they've known about these allegations for a while, after hearing what I've said and knowing how fucking influential Carson has been for the past almost 3 years, he's the king of Minecraft, became the king of Twitch for a bit. His face was on every fucking meme website, Reddit, Twitter, everywhere for so long. Think about, before you make any hateful tweets or you have any ill will towards the people who potentially have been holding on to this information about these allegations since March, whoever wants to come forward, think about what you would do. Knowing how powerful he fucking is, and if there's just a chance no one else sides with you, or if you go and own it alone, think about how bad that could be, the stress that they're under. So no, I don't want to fucking see, I know when I'm going to look on Twitter, I'm going to see Stannies either saying that it's fake, saying that they're lying and they're doing it for whatever, or that who or any of this shit. I just don't want to see anything where the people who knew get blamed because they took too long. Because you have no fucking idea. I don't have any idea. I can't even visualize how much fucking stress that they must have been under. But if it was anything like the stress, because see, I knew Carson back when he was, ooh, wow, couple 100,000 people, whatever. I have friends like that. They don't intimidate me. But them, he's made so many of your favorite content creators' careers. Don't fucking blame them for not going right out and saying shit. Thank you. That's all I want to fucking say.
As of right now, the Solitary Confinement group is officially split up. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be confused and want to know what's happening, so I brought a whiteboard. The first thing you guys need to know is it's completely my fault. Do not blame anyone but me for the podcast ending. I personally took issue with some narrator's actions, and that led to a waterfall of events to where we are now. So it all started with VidCon. The convention was great, we had a super fun time, but there were many instances where Narrator would do something that I would disagree with, and it would lead to a response from him that I would consider uncalled for. So after VidCon, I spoke to Rack. I went up to him like this, and I said, Rack, I don't really want to do the podcast with Narrator anymore. I'm going to leave. Woo, there I go. That's an arrow. And then Rack was like, well, if you're going, I might as well go myself. So, there he goes. And then I proposed to Rack that we do another podcast, just the two of us. Two little guys. Rack said okay, but we didn't really have a name for the podcast at the time. I waited until Rack was done editing his little vlog for VidCon to talk to Narrator about my concerns and the reasons I would ultimately be kicking him off the podcast. What I essentially ended up saying was, we have a very toxic relationship, and I think it would be best for both of us if we stopped interacting publicly. After that, I tweeted out on the podcast Twitter account that we'd be coming out with information very soon. And then I went on a trip for a week to see my grandparents. While on the trip, Rack and I decided on a name. We decided on the name Spit Take. Besides the name, we didn't really have any other ideas. We just knew we were going to do a podcast. And that was pretty much all we planned while I was on the trip. And we didn't really plan anything else for the podcast afterwards. I get back from my trip and I plan to announce Spit Take in the coming weeks. And I let the people in my stream know what's going on, so they had a little insider info. Ciao. About 2 days in, after I got back from my trip, Narrator tweeted on his personal Twitter account about how Rack and I had not kept him in the loop. Now, personally, I don't think there was anything to keep him in the loop on. All we had decided on was a name. But these tweets led to many fans saying that Rack and I were acting like children. So then I ended up sending a little instant message, a little AOL to Narrator, and I wanted to express my concern. I told him nothing had really changed with the podcast plans and that we were still kicking him, and he expressed his anger in being told he was kicked, and also having my stream viewers know more about what was happening with the future of the podcast than him. I haven't personally spoken to Narrator since then. I'm sure he's going to watch this video. I tried hearing him out, but he didn't really send any more messages to me. So I just kind of assume we're not on speaking terms anymore. A few days later, Rack came to me and said, I'm not sure I want to do Spit Take anymore. It feels unfair to Narrator, which I completely understood. Instead, he's going to be doing a podcast with JC called Homie Talk, which I'm very excited for. I think it'll be a great podcast. I'm in full support of it, and you guys should be too. And that brings us up to the present pretty much. With fans in disarray, everyone's confused on what's happening, and I'm here to crush people's dreams. As of right now, like I said, the Solitary Confinement group is officially split up. And like I said before, if there's anyone to blame, it's me. If I had not chosen to express my issues with Narrator, then the podcast would still be together. Now, I personally think Narrator's a terrible person, but that should not in any way affect how you see him. Please continue to support him and don't let any petty behind-the-scenes problems affect how you see us. This stuff happens to everyone. It just so happens that this is a very public friendship. Now, moving on from the Solitary Confinement podcast, I know one of the first things you guys are going to ask is, will you guys be keeping the old stuff up? And yes, we will. Every episode of the Solitary Confinement podcast will be staying up on the channel except for episode 5. Episode 5 will not be staying up due to it having my phone number in it. Apples to Avocados will also be continuing as well. I'm very excited to continue that. I think it's a great series and I think it's super fun to record. The channel as a whole, however, will be getting a huge facelift. Since Narrator and Rack are gone, I'm going to be changing the branding of the channel to be called Unzipped. And for Unzipped, I'm going to be doing my own podcast to try and make up for my failure to keep the Solitary Confinement podcast together. And I'm just going to be doing it with my friends Josh, Rister, and Altrev. I know this probably won't make up for the Solitary Confinement being split up, but I think something is better than nothing. If this does not make up for it, I completely understand. As a closing word, I just want to say the Solitary Confinement channel has always been like a second child for me. I love this channel. I love that we built up an amazing fan base for it. And I'm sorry that it had to be like this. Support Narrator and Rack in whatever they do, please. I'm begging you. And thank you guys so much for being amazing fans. Wait, I gotta write goodbye. Hold up. There we go. I wrote goodbye.
What more can I say? Other than it was nice while it lasted. I'm probably going to be sunsetting this channel. If I do upload again in the future, it'll be on Narrator, which is my Osu channel. And to everyone I ever had the pleasure of being friends with online, thank you. And I'm sorry to any of you who now either hold negative opinions of me or just hate me because of Carson gaslighting you about me. And I wish I could change that, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? 'Cause there's nothing much I can really do. Thanks for watching, and fuck you, Carson.